Hey there, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from everyday entrepreneurs.
Well, hello, this is Heidi Anderson, and welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show. I'm here with my co-host, Jeff Heggie of Jeff Heggie Coaching, and I am so excited to introduce you to Tiago Buhr. He is just a fascinating young man who I was graced to meet through actually somebody else we've had on the show earlier. And one of the fun things about the show is how you just keep linking to more and more people, and it just spreads it. We're going international. He's actually in Brazil. So I'm not going to really get into his bio so much. I'm going to let him tell his story because nobody can tell it like he does. So without further ado, here is Tiago.
Yeah, hey, how are you guys? So yeah, my story. I sent the bio, and usually the bio is like a little bit of the achievement, so I'm not gonna do that because I actually don't really enjoy talking much about that. I'm gonna talk about why I started this journey of entrepreneurship, right? I have had three very distinct times in my life, and I can go down in one and explain it a bit further, where I had someone believe in me even when I didn't believe in myself, and I achieved something that was completely out of my imagination. One example was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movie Dead Poets Society.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie, right? With Robin Williams, and he plays this like really inspiring teacher. So I had a very similar teacher in my school. We were talking before the podcast that languages is one of the skills that I learned early on. My parents being from different countries, so I always had ease in that. But I completely sucked in math. I was horrible in math. Like I couldn't. The numbers didn't make any sense to me. And in one grade, I had a teacher, and he kept believing in me. He kept inspiring me. He kept making math something that was not just numbers, but it was actually like I could understand it. And he stayed after classes with me. He gave me some challenges. He was always believing in me. And at the end of the year, I was tutoring people in math in my class. And that's the power of like having somebody that believes in you, even when you don't think it's possible. So I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that was going to be such a defining moment, but you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And now that's what I do with people. Like I believe in them when it's hardest, right? Because this entrepreneurial journey is not all rainbows and flowers and fairy dust.
But it's so amazing that you actually got your first experience, very successful experience. You were only a teenager, what, 17? And I remember you telling me the story that like you were in class, like doing your classwork, but also like running this business. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I think that's a great story.
Yeah. So I had a social media marketing company. Right? It was me and another person that I hired. It's not like this huge enterprise. But I was pretty proud of it. I built it from 0 to 700,000 followers in 2 years. And for the first 6 months, I didn't see a cent, nothing, but I just kept believing in it. And people were doubting and saying like, how can you ever make money off this? I said, I don't know. Let me just try to figure it out. And there was this one time that I had this, because I lived in Germany and I had to tweet in US time zones. So sometimes I woke up at 2 in the morning, I put an alarm clock at 2 or at 4 in the morning to tweet during the evening in the US. And sometimes I was scheduling tweets during class hours. And one time I had a teacher and she just lost it because I was always on my cell phone. And she was like, you're going to be sweeping floors here in this school. You're never going to amount to anything. And I was just like, all right, but I'm doing 50 euros a day tweeting. And she just went mad. And from that moment, like I knew, like, I'm not going to go to university. I can learn much faster building my own businesses and failing a lot. Because there was some good failures in that as well. But that's how I started.
That's really cool. I love hearing stories of people that start in their youth. And the part I love about that is that's a great time to fail, because you don't have anything to begin with. And it's such a great time to learn and just go through those experiences. And like you had said, you connect the dots looking back now. What would you say are some of your strengths and some of the advantages you have now because you started this journey at such a young age?
Well, first, I fully agree that it's so good to be able to fail when you have that safety net, right? I was living with my parents. I didn't have to pay for anything. It was at the best time. So I encourage people to start early and help their kids start early, right? So some of the advantages I see is that I'm 27. That's a pretty young age in entrepreneurship. I have had multiple experiences trying multiple companies, and through all of that, I can recognize patterns of like, these are the things that really light me up. These are the things I'm not so great at. And right now, I'm building a new company in partnership, which is like the culmination of all of those years of learning. So I think that's the biggest part, because the more different experiences you have, varied experiences you have, the more data and the more knowledge you have to make your decisions moving forward and see, okay, this is really my zone of genius. This is what people pay for. This is what gives me energy. This is what I love doing. This is where I can provide the biggest value. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have all of these different experiences.
So what do you do with the things that don't light you up? Do you outsource it? Do you have partners?
Yeah. It depends. Some things outsource, some things right now, like one of my next challenges, right? Because we were talking like, what are the challenges? Because it's not all roses. One of my next challenges is getting people in my team that are very opposite to me, that they share the same values. Like we have the same values of service, integrity, ethics, growth. We have all these same values, but people that are extremely knowledgeable and have skills where I don't, and where they have I won't say personality traits, but there's a test called like the Colby Index test, where it's like, it shows you the way that you do things. For example, I don't go very deep into explanations. I prefer to explain things on a more shallow level. I am also a person that gets extremely excited by ideas, but I'm not very good at following through and repetition. But you need that to build a sustainable business, right? So I'm right now trying to get people into the mission that have these opposite strengths.
That's very cool. One of the other things that, as you were talking, some of the things I was curious about is, as you're going through this process at a young age, how did you expand? And, even right now, you're in Brazil, did you say?
Yes.
Right now, it's the world has shrunk so much, like just recently, I've been on a podcast in India. I've been on one in Pakistan. I was on the on a call with someone in Sydney yesterday, and it's so small. It's just dealing with time zones. But at a young age, like you say, you're in high school, setting your alarm in the middle of the night so you can tweet in the US. And so what are your thoughts around that on, looking at, because even most kids probably your age, if they're thinking, I'm going to start a business in high school, and you were in Germany at the time, right?
Yes.
They would have been thinking Germany. What broadened you so much that you thought at such a bigger level?
That's it's a very interesting question, because I always did everything in English, so it was very natural to me, right?
Okay.
I researched in English. I read books in English. I frequented forums in English, so it was very natural. But the mind shift, and that's something that, man, I struggle a lot, and I still have some resistance, but I'm doing this inner work of like cleaning up these biases, these judgments of what might not be true. Is that I always focus outside in the world, right? In the US, and right now I have clients in Europe as well. Like, I always had this global mind. But this next venture that I'm doing, it's totally focused in Brazil, because wherever you are, if you can provide a ton of value, there's a market for it. I mean, of course, do you want to have a billion-dollar corporation? You're going to have to solve bigger problems, right? Probably at least nationwide, or maybe global. But to me, it was very natural, but I feel it's not necessary. I feel it can be very advantageous. For example, I have a friend, and he has a Facebook ads marketing company, and he lives in South Africa, and he specifically targets clients in the US because he gets paid in dollar, and the dollar compared to the krone, I think it's the South African krone, I'm not sure, is very advantageous. But I think that's necessary.
Okay.
It just depends on each other's journey and preference, and like what he enjoys doing and where he can serve the best.
And it's great that you can pick your audience based on the currency exchange rate. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you can literally be anywhere, and the freedom to do that. Now, you said you're focusing now back on Brazil, where you live. Is that your coaching business, or is this something different?
It's something different. It's something different, but it's something that I'm not sharing it to the world, because I always was somebody that loved sharing my ideas with the world, and like, this is what I'm gonna do, and really blasting it out to the world. What I felt, though, is that whenever you express like what your mission is, and you get really excited about it, you get this rush of endorphins, this rush of like these happy feelings, and your brain kind of wants that, and he says, okay, that's it, you just wanted that rush, you don't actually have to create that vision, because your brain can't differentiate like what's real in your mind and what's real on the physical world. So, and I researched about this, because I kept feeling this. I kept seeing like, why whenever I share my mission with somebody, doesn't it get me more excited? It kind of depletes my energy. And I was like, interesting, right? In the Twitter experience before the social media marketing company, I never said my vision to people. I just said, oh, let's see what happens, right? And it's cool that when something comes to fruition.
So you're kind of going more with what presents, and even though having that vibration, having that sensation opens you up, though, to attract those kind of things into your life more than if you were just not sharing because, well, I'm just holding it close to my vest and I don't want anybody to see it because I'm afraid somebody's going to say something negative and then that will be a buzzkill.
Yeah, no, not at
Yeah.
all.
But it's more like, you know what? It's like, the energetically it's there and you're positive and it's going to bring all that into your life because you mentally put it out there and energetically.
Yeah. It's kind of like just wait and see. Like just instead of telling you, I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
But it'll take some
that.
time.
Yeah. So I want to take a step back to math class.
Yeah.
I want to understand also how you went through the process yourself of not believing in yourself and someone believing in you and the transformation that made. And that was one of the things you said you do now is people you work with, you'll give them the belief where they don't have it. How do you orchestrate that transformation, and how did it happen to you? How does it happen to your clients where you can help them go from unbelief to believing in themselves and succeeding?
Yeah. I love that question because I'm getting like a little emotional right now. It's because I honestly believe that everybody. I didn't ask if it's allowed to swear in this, so I'm not going to swear, right? But I honestly believe everybody is a genius. But sometimes we forget to see it, right? Because we have so much stuff going inside in front of our head, so much chatter that we forget to see it. So how I help my clients, for example, I just keep pointing them back to the truth, like of how powerful they are, how amazing they are. Keep challenging them a little bit. Give them like little tasks and say, hey, you can do this, and just expand outside their comfort zone. But because also like related to my story, when I was 10, it was in the 14th of February. My mom came to us and said, like, your dad is not here with us anymore. And he had just struggled for 2 years fighting cancer. And he was the one that believed in me the most. Like, he was the one that was always there for me. And suddenly I didn't have him anymore, right? And suddenly I felt this void of like, okay, I couldn't express that at that time, right? But it was almost like, okay, who is on my side right now? Who's the one that believes in me no matter what? That's why I went after mentors, after coaches, and it's very valuable. But I also help people tap back into like, you got this. You don't need a coach, right? You don't need somebody to believe in you. Of course, it's helpful, but creating this inner resiliency, that takes time. It's a skill to know and see like, okay, I can slowly start building this up myself. Does that answer the question?
No, I like that. The other thing I like is there's something that you've used twice, and it was the word genius. And I really like how you bring that out, and that's what you try to bring out in your clients. And what you said earlier was that you find your zone of genius. So that flowed out so easily that I'm sure that's not the first time you've used that term.
No.
But what is your zone of genius? What does that mean?
So the concept zone of genius, it's similar also to like unique ability. And that is a term I first heard from Dan Sullivan, from the strategic coach. It's basically you have 4 zones of operation of your activities. You have a zone of incompetence, a zone of competence, a zone of excellence, and a zone of genius. Zone of incompetence, it's things you suck at, drain your energy, you do it worse than everybody else, you shouldn't do that. Then is at the competence zone, like you're average on it. It doesn't give you energy. You can just do these actions. Then there's the excellence zone where you get recognized by people, both financially and verbally. You're above average. You're very good at what you do. But there's one key element. It doesn't give you energy. The zone of genius is everything that the zone of excellence has, but it gives you tremendous energy. Like the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And you want to keep learning about it. You want to keep investing it, expanding it, because it just fills you up. And usually, like whenever we run our business, we might be operating 2, 5, maybe 7% of our time in our zone of genius if we really like looked up all of the time that we spent in our activities. And you can just slowly start chipping away, right? What can I eliminate of my zone of incompetence? Like what can I delegate? What can I outsource? Or what can I just stop doing to allow 1% more in the zone of genius? I always believe in these like small incremental shifts, right? How can I add 1% more there or 2%? I have a client that I had a conversation yesterday with him, and one of his zone of genius is he's excellent leading teams and he loves working in teams, but he's also a coach, and I've been helping him grow his business, but now he has a bigger vision, not only coaching, he wants to bring like a bigger movement into the world, and for that he needs a team. And I think for the last 6 months, I said, I'm not going to stop saying this. When is the time for you to build your team? You said you love doing it. You said you're really good at it, but you're playing a little bit small. And yesterday he was like, yeah, now it's time. I got this, right? And now he's going more into his zone of genius because I know he's very good at it. And it just gives him like, whenever he talks about working in a team, you can see him smiling and him lighting up, and it's recognizing those things.
Do you find that you work, are most of your clients like other coaches, or are they internet marketers, or are they just all different type of business people?
I have two main audiences, right? One is coaches, and the other one is business entrepreneurs. Those are the two main audiences that I serve.
Excellent. What I've got 2 more questions that I want to kind of dive into. One is, through your experience of running various businesses, what has been your biggest failure or learning experience as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing to the point before about the zone of genius, which I think is
absolutely.
very relevant to everybody listening?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is very hard to see your own zone of genius because it's so easy for you. And it's very hard to miss it. If you're listening to this podcast and you think like, well, I don't know what, there's that question like, what do you do that time flies by and you can't even notice it, and you would do even for free? I couldn't answer that question. For years I couldn't answer that question. And it was one moment I had that insight, and I said, you know when I could spend time, like time flew, was when I was a kid and I was playing. I sometimes played, like it could be video games or something, for 16 hours. And then I said to myself, well, that's not a zone of genius, right? But it is. Play is something that lights me up. Playing with people. And it was a mixture of playing and with people that I love. That's why I'm building this into this new business model, right? It's right. Play with business. So just, if anybody's listening to this, you can get some feedback from from people that know you, and just ask them and say, hey, what do I do well, right? What flows so easily to me that I don't see? Yeah. So about the failure, right? The question was, what was a big failure?
Yeah, yeah, you got us all thinking now. We're in thought. Now you can switch over to that.
That's so true.
But yeah, thank you for adding that in for sure.
Yeah. So a big failure. A big failure was when I was back in the Twitter business and I lost 9,000 euros at the time to a scam, right? Somebody wanted to buy a purchase, like they wanted to buy a part of my business, a Twitter account, and I was the price, and I just believed in everything, and I just believed in the good heart of people, and it's still something I believe in, but I could have put more controls in place. I could have put it in escrow. I could have had more resources, because he just took the money, um, uh, never heard about him again, didn't reply any emails. He just vanished, right? It's very easy. So that's also right, that building the team of people that are like, I'm a very positive person. I believe in the good in everybody. Sometimes that's not the case. Like, you could have somebody in your team that's a bit of like the critic and says like, that's not very safe. And if I had somebody at that time, maybe I would have listened to him and would say, yeah, you're right, and wouldn't have lost that.
Do you feel like somewhere along the way that lesson, though, maybe has helped you to do things differently that has had it pay you back tenfold? Does that make sense? Like, it's like, I look at investments like that because I've done them too, believe me. And you don't really see the immediate effect, and you go, there's always a lesson in there, right? So you learn to put systems in place. You learn that they maybe, have somebody to bounce things off, whatever it was that you learned from it. I just feel like, money is like everything. Money's energy, right? And you put it out there in the world, and I really do think, for the most part, if you believe, that it will come back.
I think it came back already, right? And
yeah.
I'm still alive and doing business, right?
Yes.
It's a lesson, right?
Yeah.
Failure is not a failure if you don't learn from it. It did hurt me a little bit personally, because I was like, I'm always trying to do good. Why would somebody cheat like me on that?
Right.
But my lesson in that is like, it's not personal. Who cares? Like, it happened. Put better systems. I'm not going to stop believing in the good inside people, because some people could become very bitter from that and say like, I'm not going to trust people again. I said, no, that's not how I want to operate. Like, I prefer, even now, like I'm running a mastermind that it's a very low monthly fee, just to keep the business model sustainable. And I asked them if they're okay with sharing a percentage of the revenue that gets added directly from being a member of the mastermind. And it's at their sole discretion. Like, I'm not going to check your financials. Like, if you make more, and I don't care. It's like, I believe in the honor and integrity of people. And I think that's the best way to handle things, right?
Very cool. Okay, and I'm sorry, my questions jump around a lot, but the other question I had for you, and because I can tell by our conversation, you've studied a lot of different people and you have a lot of knowledge from different people. Share with us a book that has made a major impact in your life.
So the number one book that changed my life is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Not a business book, very spiritual book, but It helped me understand how all suffering is like created in the mind and it's not real. A business book which I really enjoy, which taught me, okay, like this is more how entrepreneurship works. It's a book and it has a terrible title, and I was resistant to buying it because of the title, but I read the reviews and was like, it's got to be good. It's called The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. I think I gave 10 copies of that to like friends and clients and said like, read this book, see, because he has like the commandments there, the commandments of need, entry, scale, time, and control, right? All of these principles that you need to have in order to run a real successful business. So those two books were really, and the third book, like I'm very unorthodox. I'm not saying just one. The third book is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. We're running up to our time limit, but Heidi, did you have anything else? I could stay on for another hour or two.
Oh, absolutely. No, he's fascinating. It's so much to learn from him. But I do think it's interesting, and you kind of just pull that together, and I think it's come up a few times of where you've got spirituality and you've got the mechanics of business, and you really need both, right? Because you can know how to do something and know from A to Z what the steps are, but if you don't have the belief, if you don't have the faith, whatever that means to somebody, I'm not, but just if you, then sometimes it still just doesn't work out. And for you, like being open-hearted, and you're so generous and trusting, and because of that, that's what you're going to attract to you. And I know that obviously you've been a huge success at a very young age, and I can't wait to see where you just keep going.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Me neither.
Well, thank you. We've appreciated you being on the show with us, and we can't wait to get this out. And just share with us where people can find you, where they can find you online, wherever.
Yeah. Well, thank you also for the podcast, Jeff and Heidi. It was wonderful. I loved it. Where people can find me on Facebook, Tiago Buhr, and my website. It's actually, I don't know when you are going to release this, but it's remodeling and maybe it might be offline, but it's tiagobuhr.com. Those are the two places. And if anybody wants to talk, just reach out, like send me an email.
Great. And I'll make sure to have those links in the show notes too, so people can find them and make sure to stay in touch with you. But thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us, and fascinating story, and wish you all the best.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Tiago.